I'm friends with Sam Harris, and he really doesn't believe much in lying. Now, he's not absolutely fanatical about it. He knows that there are certain cases where he has to lie. But I would never want, because I'm trying to be aware of truthfulness and fickleness and all of these sorts of things, status, for example. I have a need for status. It's not a standard need for status in some ways. In some ways, it's boring. But I don't mind talking about it because I can make contact with it and I don't feel diminished by inheriting a human condition. The thing that really distorts me is that I feel like we're all handed this white suit that we don't want at birth. And then as we live our lives, all of the things that we do when we spill our soup or, we spend time in the barn end up soiling this white suit. And people look at us and say, my God, look at you. My question is, well, who ordered the white suit to begin with? Wouldn't I rather start with a baseline that says, I bet I'm a fairly standard person. And if lying is a problem, and if hypocrisy is a problem, if injustice and bigotry are problems, wouldn't I want to give myself a budget in all of those areas? And the key question is trying to live within one's means.
I think that's absolutely right. So when you said, I have all these flaws, that's why you want to teach ethics, because you want to understand them. I mean, the thing about the white suit, so I think that's a really pervasive myth in our society, and it's maybe there are a lot of good legacies of Christianity, but it's a bad one. The kind of virtues of innocence idea, the idea that we all start out ethically good, right? And that's related to the status game point about how we get something for free, right? But the idea is, well, maybe you can sully it, maybe you can sort of, and then clean it up again, and that can be your ethical agency, right? But I don't think that children have some kind of innate virtue. I think virtue is something you have to acquire, and you have to come to an understanding of what matters.
But the point is, society foists the white suit upon you,
right?
So you can't. So you have to say, I reject this white suit. I will fashion my own.
Yeah.
If you don't want to disappoint people, right? Now, the problem there is that I believe that your privacy, for example, we see very few of our colleagues naked.
Yeah.
I'm
puzzled by that.
There was a professor that was probably the closest to being my official advisor. I didn't have a PhD advisor, but the person who signed my thesis as if he was my PhD advisor had a home in Martha's Vineyard, and we would swim naked together, because that was what one did. He was a sun worshiper and a Hungarian Jew, by the way. The fact that we don't see each other naked means that we're stunned whenever we do catch a glimpse of somebody out of context in which they are in their most natural state. And this has to do with the fact that we are handed these clothes and told to wear them at all times. And then our simple underlying reality is totally shocking. So it seems to me very sad that you would have to give the lecture. I'm not saying that you might want to give the lecture. You might enjoy the exhibition of it. You might enjoy the courage exercise of it. You might enjoy the intellectual puzzle of it. But the idea that there's a compulsion so as not to ruin your students has to do with the flaw of having accepted the white suit to begin with and therefore losing your privacy.
It's a really good point. So I think that...
Wait, can I do a victory dance?
I think, and I see what you mean. And I think what you're helping me to see is that I've somewhat framed what I was doing slightly wrong. It's the point, the thought isn't if I don't give this talk, then my students will think I did something evil and then they won't respect me anymore. And so instead I need to excuse myself, right? And I need to show that actually I'm as white as they thought I was. And that's definitely not for instance, that's not at all what Socrates does at that moment in the Apology. Actually what he says is that, he's like, you might think that, some really bad thing has happened. That's what he goes on to say. You might think some really bad thing has happened to me. You might think this is terrible that they're putting me to death, which is what everyone thinks about Socrates. Oh, look, Plato showed that you can't have philosophy because look at this terrible result. And the whole point of the Apology is Socrates this isn't a bad thing. No bad thing happened to me. Yes, they're putting me to death, but a good man can't be harmed, neither in life nor in death. And I'm not, like it's bad for them because they're doing something unjust, so it's bad for their souls, but it's not bad for me. Don't feel sorry for me. Don't feel bad for me. Right? Okay. And I guess as much as and I think you were right in picking up on the kind of self-excusing nature of the way that I put it. But like, if you think about what I told you as the content of the talk, right? It was more like, as much as anything, it was an opportunity, like to say something truthful about love that I'd never had such an opportunity, because I had never. One of my colleagues came to the talk and he's like, this was not a compliment. This was sort of a criticism. He's like, you talked as if you were Moses come down from the mountain. Like as though you had so much knowledge, like as though you thought you were Socrates or something, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I felt like. I felt like I had all this knowledge and it was wonderful. And I had to share it with my students. And so it was almost like there's 2 points of correction, right? So one point of correction would be to get to the white suit, but the actual content of the talk was to go the step further. Like, this was an educational opportunity. And I think that I let myself not frame it that way in telling the story, maybe somewhat under the pressure of the idea of self-purification.